You're listening to Zoo Nation.
Ready? You have the cameras rolling?
Come on, man.
Welcome to Zoo Nation, where we talk about history as it unfolds and talk about the political zoo of a nation that we're living in. My name is Josh.
I'm Nathan.
And we're here to talk to you about a number of stories, a lot of it focused on 2024. We're going to talk about some debate prep for you guys, because there's a debate going on, big news. It's going on in California at 9 o'clock, but that's 9 o'clock Eastern time. It's going to be a different time, obviously 6 o'clock on the Pacific time zone. But we're going to be talking about some debate prep. We're going to be talking about 2024, our thoughts on the candidates. Going to be covering that. But another thing we want to talk about to begin with is some international news in Canada, of all places. I mean, Canada, when does that ever show up in the news, right? But a big announcement that we do need to prep y'all for, so that you're not wondering about other episodes that are going to come out specifically in October and early November, is that I have some things going on in my personal life, good things that are taking up some time. And so I will not be here in this chair recording with Nathan the whole month of October, nor in the first Thursday of November. But we will be coming back, both of us, by that point, the second Thursday in November. The plan is to do that. But in the meantime, Nathan's not going anywhere. Nathan is planning on creating some content, as you've committed to.
Don't know the dates yet, but yeah, we'll figure something out.
Yeah, and the other thing is, please follow us on Instagram. That's a good place to see updates. That's a good thing to do. And we have other social media accounts as well. Facebook, just look up Zoo Nation. Zoo_Nation_ is what we are on Instagram. You can find him at CelticsFan33, and you can find me at The Fog Whirlwind. So there's places you can follow us in the meantime, but The Fog and the Whirlwind won't be going up either in October. I'll be stepping back. Some of it's a sabbatical for me from politics, just because I need a month to rest. But there's also other things going on. But there's going to be content coming at you from Nathan. Nathan's made 2 episodes by himself that I think were amazing. So definitely check those out. Check out all of our episodes, but check out those and enjoy what you have in October. So to get into the news now, let's get going. So this is from independent.co.uk. Canadian Parliament accidentally honors Nazi, with Zelensky and Trudeau applauding. Speaker Anthony Rota has apologized for calling a Nazi SS soldier a Ukrainian hero. Canada's House of Commons gave a rousing standing ovation to a Ukrainian veteran who fought in the Second World War, unaware he had served in a Nazi SS unit. Yaroslav Hunka, 98, was sitting in the gallery when he was described as Ukrainian hero and a Canadian hero, to applause from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and President Volodymyr Zelensky. However, leaders were left red-faced when House Speaker Anthony Rota subsequently apologized after it emerged that Hunka served in the 14th Waffen SS Grenadier Division, a voluntary unit made up of mostly ethnic Ukrainians under Nazi command. So there's not a whole lot to say about this other than they didn't know what they were doing, what they were thinking, and what they were applauding, right? Clearly. I don't know about you. The first thing that I thought of, do you remember the time that Obama went to Nelson Mandela's funeral?
Oh, yeah.
And he had the sign language interpreter that was standing up there, and it came out later. That guy was clicking his hands and moving around. He is not a sign language interpreter. He's not saying anything.
Yeah.
Or if he is, it's stuff deaf people don't understand. So that's what I thought of is, okay, zero screening, zero accountability, zero research. A quick Google search of this guy would have been like, oh, shoot, this guy served in Ukraine, but he served under Nazi command.
Yeah.
So huge mistakes both times. And these people are literally standing up and cheering about a guy that was served under the Waffen SS, right, under Hitler's command, ultimately under Hitler's command, or at least working with Ukrainian forces that were working with Hitler's command. So this is a horrible look for everybody involved in Canada and Volodymyr Zelensky there as well, who stood up and clapped and cheered. So this became international news. Do you have any thoughts as far as what we saw here about the disgrace that this brought down on Canada and Ukraine?
I don't think it was necessarily an accident. I just think they're calling it an accident in the sense of, like, we got backlash, so therefore, hey, it's an accident. You know, I mean, that it's a typical, you know, media move of, like, when you get crazy backlash, it's like something comes up as far as, like, oh, it was an accident, or, you know, there's more to the story or whatever. I don't know. So, like, I don't know. Personally, I mean, yeah, bad look. Could have been potential just not paying attention to your job as far as, like, not researching enough. But at the same point, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things that I don't necessarily find an accident, so to speak. And just, like, your typical, I mean, shoot, you've had Biden called, you know, a KKK member a wonderful and great person. So, I mean, and that was never classified as an accident and stuff like that. So why would, you know, Canada be any different? I don't know. That's my thing on it. I don't necessarily see it as an accident. I just think this got enough backlash to where they had to call it an accident because these things are, like, becoming norm to an extent, I guess. So therefore, it's like, oh, we got backlash on the norm of things, so let's just, again, call it an accident or whatever. So
you think that they possibly were knowingly praising a Nazi?
Yeah.
Really?
I can see it, personally.
How do you see that? Like, what would be okay in their minds for doing that?
I mean, the way COVID was treated in Canada, for one, was essentially, I mean, very authoritarianism-like, and, I mean, you know, the way, even after just the trucker protests and everything like that were treated and everything else, I mean, I don't know, just Canada in general and most of the world and the way they've treated things, I mean, shoot, look at Australia, and the way they treated COVID too, it was very not, it wasn't World War II-esque, but it was like a I guess a let's see how close we can get type thing to that without doing the extra war stuff and, you know, genocide and stuff like that. You know, so it's like, I don't know. With the authoritarianism that's going on in the world and everything like that, I do see them praising these guys because these are the playbook, so to speak, or at least the guys that they looked up to and, like, oh, you guys did it right here, here, and here, but these are the parts that we're going to fix, quote unquote. So I don't know. Personally, that's my personal opinion on it, but I don't know. What about you?
Well, you see a different perspective than I do by a long shot. I don't see in anything with Justin Trudeau or any of these people, Zelensky. Okay, Zelensky's complicated.
Yeah.
Trudeau, that's definitely complicated. Trudeau, I don't see anything in him similar to Hitler or similar to those views about Jewish people and Jewish power, for example.
Okay, but imprisoning his political opponents.
So
I mean,
can either,
and when I say political opponents, I mean political resistance.
So you can say either it's authoritarian and all authoritarianism is the same.
Oh, yeah.
I don't necessarily see that. I think there's different kinds of authoritarians. For example, Stalin and Hitler were different kinds of authoritarians and viciously hated each other.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
FDR is another example. The guy literally put Japanese people in camps. Another authoritarian, and really hated Hitler, right?
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily see, just because these people have authoritarian tendencies, therefore praise the Nazi soldier. That's a different perspective than I have.
I mean,
I don't see how Trudeau would knowingly think this guy, I think his name's Yaroslav, has, assuming he had, because it said he's a volunteer unit, so he was there of his own free will, has views at least against Russians, if not Jews too, that make you and I's blood crawl, you know, regarding violence against people, whatever. So the thing is, I don't see Trudeau being a man that would be like, oh, I'm cool with that. Now, I see with Trudeau at least that's more of an ignorant thing. Like, oh, I legitimately, all I heard was this guy fought the Russians.
Yeah.
And probably, if I had to guess what happened, is Zelensky said, this is an amazing patriot and soldier of my own country. Can I bring him? And he said, sure. Trusting Zelensky. Now, what's the complication with Zelensky? You have, and there's pictures of this, and I can put them on my Telegram or Zoo Nation's Telegram if it's called for, where there are a lot of Nazi flags combined with Ukrainian flags in Ukraine, Azov Battalion, right? So this is the crazy thing is people will say, for example, about Ukraine, there's no Nazi problem. Zelensky is Jewish, ha ha ha. And it's like, all right, but what did you say bigger? This was interesting. So, I agree on the one hand and don't on the other hand. Yeah. So when you talk about history and Biden, for example, talking positively about a member of the KKK, number one, some of it is he's just a corrupt dude. Yeah. And the KKK served his political purpose at the time. Yeah. But secondly, you have to look at the context. What was okay in America at a certain time is not okay in America now, to the point where, this is the thing, praising a KKK member and whatever Biden did that is different than currently Canada praising a Nazi member.
Yeah, I was going to say, because being a Nazi was never, except for in Germany, was never an acceptable thing, so to speak.
Well, unless you're in Ukraine, apparently, right?
Right, exactly.
Because
unless you're in Axis power, of course,
that kind of
Germany and then Axis power.
So, right, and look, there were people in America that did lean a certain direction. I'm not denying that existed. I don't know if so there's weirdness there. And all kinds of weirdness around World War II we can't even get into.
We're talking majority.
Right. So the thing is, with Zelensky, I view similarly to Biden using the KKK for political purposes, and now he uses other people for political purposes that are not at all in that direction. I view Zelensky with Azov. Zelensky commands the military has Azov, and they serve a political purpose of fighting the Russians. That's the way I see it. So it's kind of ridiculous in bad faith to say, oh, there's no Nazi problem, Zelensky is Jewish. It's like, okay, you can't deny all these photos of the Azov Battalion and what they believe and what they think. They literally Heil Hitler. And look, do I think Zelensky in his heart of hearts Heils Hitler? No, that would be kind of weird. But does he use them as a political thing or just because they serve his purpose? Yeah, that I do believe. And probably also possibly he can't fire them out of the military because maybe they serve their country well enough in fighting the Russians. It's kind of like, well, if you fire them, who are you going to replace them with? So that's a complicated situation. So all this to say, I think probably part of this is Zelensky's fault and not Trudeau. I think Trudeau is probably ignorant about it. This is what I mean by the whole not screening. But of course, people realize pretty quickly, who is Yaroslav? And they do the Google search and are like, shoot, this guy was in Ukraine fighting against Stalin, but who was he fighting with? The Waffen-SS. So pretty humiliating, and it feels like to me in an effort to be anti-Russian, they actually became inadvertently pro-Nazi, and they didn't realize that, which is kind of funny on the one hand, but in a sick way. So that's international news.
And I guess I could offer an excuse to Trudeau as far as like, oh yeah, you want to look good, because Zelensky, that's the thing, like support Zelensky in this case. That's like the common, denominator amongst all these things.
But why? Yeah.
However, I'm not gonna necessarily offer a pass to Zelensky. Is my thing. So it's like I can get your point on Trudeau of just Zelensky says this. It's like, okay, yeah, cool. So it's lazy on his end of things, of course. And he was just falling in line as far as like hey, this. Our fearless leader, or whatever you want to call it, whatever Zelensky is at this point, is saying, hey, honor this guy. Okay, cool. We'll do it. Because, Zelensky said so. So it's like, okay. So Trudeau, I guess, kind of gets passed to an extent. But Zelensky, I don't know. I could see some intent behind it, personally, and some agreements. I mean, especially with what you said about, the battalions and stuff like that. So it's like, they're... Somewhere down the line, I think somebody knew something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So, did Joe? Maybe not, but, Zelensky, you got a better chance.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, to get into now what probably a lot of you guys are thinking, and it'll be interesting to see your comments and your feedback about the debate once the debate happens. So please do leave a comment and let us know, hey, turns out that you guys were right whenever you predicted this, or, what it comes down to in the Reagan Library how the debate among the Republican 2024 hopefuls plays out. But to my knowledge, as of today, Trump will not be there. He has said he will not. And so there will be, what I've read, 6 candidates there. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Now, I was thinking today, there's a difference, and I want to get your view on this and our viewers' attitude and thoughts on this idea, is one thing I did think about from the first debate is there's a difference between talking about a policy that is good, for example, abortion, being pro-life. I agree. You and I are no exceptions, guys. We've talked about that on the podcast extensively and why. So that's great. But there's a difference between talking about a policy position and why it's good and basically, although this has a negative connotation, having a platitude, just a speech, a political speech, and actually trying to lay out a plan for this is how we're going to get this done. Now, to be fair, is it hard to do that in a debate? Definitely, because everything's timed by a minute or 2 minutes at the most. But you can still try to lay out this is how we're going to get this done. So I want to hear your thoughts of everyone on stage that is going to be at the Reagan Library. Who do you think has the biggest chance of just giving promises and sketching out, oh, this is a policy position? And who do you think will say, here's a policy position, here's how we're going to get it done?
Yeah. Well, first, let's lay out the 6. The 6, if I'm not mistaken, are going to be Chris Christie, right? 1. Then you got Pence, right? 2. Nikki Haley, gracious. That's 3. Scott, correct? Tim Scott. And then Vivek. And then
Asa Hutchinson.
No. Wait, where?
He should be there.
Is he? Wait, so that's it. Wait,
I read that he, yeah.
So
no, Burgum should not be there.
Wait, so where's what's his name? DeSantis.
Oh, so he would be 6. Well, then that means they eliminated Hutchinson. I read earlier he was supposed to be there.
Yeah, that's why I had the shock look.
Yeah.
I was like,
I thought earlier he was going to be there. Maybe I misread something. So, okay, well, regardless, yeah, it must be that Hutchinson was eliminated and Burgum was too. Is anyone mad?
No. I mean, again, Burgum had some good opinions. He's just not the guy.
No.
As far, you're not that guy, pal. Nobody's calling.
So that would be 6, yeah.
Yeah. So nobody's.
Which I will say, I think the people you named, maybe it goes a little too far. That's probably who the conservatives want to hear from. I don't think that many people were like more Hutchinson
aside from
and
Trump.
more
I
Burgum.
think that
right. I'm just saying. Yeah, exactly. Aside.
Yeah.
So anyway, finish your point.
Who wants to hear from Nikki Haley? I have no idea, but hey, you do you.
Hey, she got a lot of applause last debate. It was disheartening, but she did.
Yeah, because anytime you mention Israel. But anyway, that's beside the point. All right. So let's go back to that question now. What was the question? Exactly?
Regarding who's going to make promises and say this is good, and who's going to say that and then say here's how we get it done.
Okay.
Who's going to actually lay out a plan of some kind?
So I think all of them are going to make promises. Pence is known for making promises. I think Trump was when you had the Trump-Pence candidacy. 2016. I think Pence was good at making promises, and Trump was good at making good on those promises as far as here's what we're going to do. Pence didn't really, he laid out some things for, stuff, but he did what a vice president does and says, hey, this is our plan. And
right.
We promised to do X, and then,
right.
Trump's this is how we're going to do X.
Not X, the social media platform.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we got to clarify that every time.
So yeah, I think Pence is going to make promises. I don't think he's going to come out with anything, groundbreaking that hasn't already been done. It's going to be typical Republican, typical Christian based things, in my opinion, which again, that's not necessarily bad, but I'm not voting for Pence anyway, so it's like I don't really care.
We'll come to that. I want to hear
and then Chris Christie, he's going to do Chris Christie stuff. I don't even know what he's going to do.
You don't think
there is no way he's going to say anything he can fix, because the man even just making promises is stupid on his end. Him being in this thing is stupid. But he'll be another guy that makes promises and doesn't say anything, in my opinion. He'll probably honestly go back to, because I've heard some stuff of, if Trump doesn't show up to at least one of the debates, he's going to, hound Trump. So I've got a feeling he's probably going to go at Trump a little more this time. Instead of, forget promises and everything. There's a good chance he just goes to Trump. So I don't know. if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Chris Christie. You know, if anybody's going to do it. Now, if anybody jumps on board, I don't know. Nikki Haley, probably just promises. No, nothing. I mean, she could possibly make some ways as far as foreign policy goes because of the fact that she's got some experience in that area. So I could see her, you know, possibly coming up with some like, oh yeah, so this is how we're going to handle the, you know, Russia-Ukraine thing. It'll probably suck. But anyway, that's beside the point. Tim Scott, promises guy. He doesn't have enough, I guess, experience to really offer of like, this is how we fix it.
To pause you really quickly, he was literally who I was thinking of making promises with no plans. So go ahead.
Exactly. So that again, I think that's a typical Tim Scott thing for the most part. And just, again, I think the reason is because just, like, lack of experience. Yeah, he's been in Congress and stuff like that before. Okay, we get it. But, like, that doesn't necessarily mean you know the process of the presidency and everything else. So, I mean, yeah. Vivek, I've got a feeling that he will offer... I'm 50-50 on Vivek. I know he's going to make promises. He's got the attitude, to an extent, of a 2016 Trump, of just, you know, in a different aspect of, like, he's got that flair and finesse of, you know, that Trump, and willing to go at anybody and, like, take the heat of anybody and everything. And so I think he's going to embrace whatever he's got to, so he'll make promises as far as, you know, Ukraine goes, and, you know, as far as, like, you know, I mean, shoot, he kind of made a promise as far as Israel went, as far as we're going to have Israel standing on their own 2 feet and stuff like that. So, you know, he didn't go into depth on how, you know, so I if he's going to come up with ideas, I don't know, but he's definitely going to be a promises guy. The guy that I'm counting on as far as, like, we're going to do stuff, like, this is how we're going to do it, I'm counting on DeSantis to be that guy. Because, one, he's been governor of Florida. He knows how to at least do things as far as legislation goes and everything else. You know, maybe not, again, not to the U.S. level of things, but again, you know, state is, you know, a major aspect of things. So, you know, he knows how to do things through a legislative ruling and everything. So, yeah, I think that he'll have some ideas. And he's kind of mentioned some of them vaguely to an extent, as far as, like, mentioned how processes work, and he's going to take those processes towards his presidency. So I think he'll kind of possibly go into depth. But yeah, he'll definitely make promises, and I think he'll be the one guy that actually does say, and this is how.
Okay.
You know? So, yeah, what about you?
Well, you know, I think if any of them are going to be substantive, it's probably going to be DeSantis and Vivek.
Yeah.
The most substantive, I would say. You know, Haley had moments, and I don't like her, and I won't vote for her, where she said, look, if you're going to talk about abortion, talk about it in terms of we got to win the House and the Senate. Now, you know, that is not necessarily a plan, because it's like, okay, I love your line of logic, which is always, but then what, but then what? Yeah. So in other words, it's like, okay, Haley, you say that, how do we take back the House? How do we take back the Senate? Exactly. She didn't even attempt to answer that question.
Right, exactly.
Right, and where she's not, I don't think she's going to. No. But at least there, I was like, okay, America, look in the mirror. Y'all have got to move to the right and affect how Congress works. Y'all have got to call up your congressman and say, work on this. Now, again, she didn't directly call for that, but if you're turning attention on a problem of the Senate and the House, which she really did, again, broken clock right twice a day, good for you on that one. So she might have a moment or two where it's like, okay, that's a policy position, and also step one maybe of how to get there. Again, I've expressed that. Again, you mentioned Israel. All you got to do is mention Israel. Everyone goes crazy and claps and cheers. And again, the thing too is that I mentioned to people is, look, guys, this is not a Trump rally. At a Trump rally, if he brought up giving millions of dollars of aid to Israel and Ukraine, would people clap and cheer? I feel like his audience is kind of 50-50. You know, I feel like his base is 50-50.
If they give money to Israel, yeah, they'd clap and cheer.
Probably.
As far as
the other one,
to Ukraine, not so
that's
much.
more of a split.
I actually think he would. I think his base is that'd be less than 50-50 on applause.
I hope.
I personally think.
I hope.
At least my opinion on
There's
that one.
a lot of old people, though, that they believe exactly what Fox News tells them, and same with CNN.
Or just whatever Trump says. It's like,
well, whatever it is.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. So, yeah, I can
there's
see
when it comes to substance, again, I mentioned Scott in terms of just rhetoric and empty promises.
Yeah.
I think we get that.
Yep.
I think with Pence, what you said's probably true. I think it's going to be, if he can, he's going to milk more of the how good the Trump-Pence years were. Because if you notice, he did that. Without praising Trump, he tried to say, he mentioned the Trump-Pence years. And
but it still shot him in the foot, in my opinion, as far as...
You think so? Okay.
Yeah, because of the fact that the reason that I think so is because nobody's forgotten, J6.
Well, we'll go into that too.
So, I mean, that's the whole thing, is like anytime he can mention how great for him, like, oh yeah, it was great, except for you kind of sort of messed it up in a lot of people's minds. So it's like what you're saying is like kind of you're devaluing it to an extent, because it's like, yeah, it was, except for, so I don't know.
If you're going to be a politician, you've got to ride the upside.
Well, I agree with that too.
That's what he's doing. And look, to your point, is it working on me? Absolutely not.
I don't think it's working on anybody. That's
right. Well, okay. There are people that you and I know that are not in that camp.
Well, yeah.
It has worked on them.
Yeah.
And it's because, in my opinion, what has he been? He's been in the House. He's been in the Senate. He's been in politics for a while.
He has a record.
Well, he's a good politician.
Yeah. And
if you want old, trustworthy, old, reliable, you heard it a little bit with him. I was a House conservative before it was cool. And it's like, that's what you get with Pence, right? And so,
you also get the Christian vote.
Sure. Not the Christian vote.
But, I mean, the evangelical vote, for the most part.
Not
necessarily the evangelical vote, but just him being a Christian and has been openly Christian for quite some time, that has drawn people towards him. I mean,
sure.
That's definitely during 2016 what drew people a little bit of the evangelical vote towards Trump was
sure.
him being, it's like, oh yeah, this guy, like,
sure.
So yeah.
Fair enough.
So yeah, that's my
Now,
point.
other thing, and we need to go into this in a bit, but don't let me forget, I want to talk about who you think Trump will choose as VP later, but not now. We can talk about the debate right now.
Yeah.
So are you right about how Chris Christie hits this debate floor? I really think you are.
Yeah.
I think if anyone takes shots... Well, what else is he going to say? I mean, I don't know if you noticed.
I eat donuts. That's it. I mean,
dude, you don't need to go.
I like Dunkin' over Krispy Kreme.
You don't need to go into ad hominems when talking about the guy. That's people talk about Trump's hair and his skin, and that's an ad hom. There's no need to do that with Chris Christie. All I got to do is talk about his politics, and that's just out of his mind.
I mean, yeah,
he will never recover from when he was debating. I think he actually, if Rand Paul and him had not squared off in 2016, the very first debate. And Rand Paul looked at him and said, "You fundamentally misunderstand the Bill of Rights. You are taking law-abiding citizens' information by cell phone and email unconstitutionally. You don't understand that you need to have a warrant to do so." And Chris Christie tried to recover from it, and he really couldn't. And from then on, it was a downward spiral, in my opinion. Now, it was a slow one. It became an avalanche later on, and he never recovered. The only upside he had after that was when Marco Rubio repeated himself 4 times. Yeah. And he was the one guy on stage. This is something I wish Trump had done. But Chris Christie said, here's a political speech. You're hearing this guy repeating his words over and over. Now, interesting thing, will there be a moment like that again in 2024 with somebody? Come on. It's got to be.
Yeah.
I don't know who it'll be. It might even be Vivek for all I know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it'll be somebody. It's a thing.
Frankly, when Rubio did that, he was nervous, and he didn't know what else to say.
Yep.
He was trying to, I have more time to respond, and let me feel like he was trying to hammer a point home, and he's like, dude, we already get it. You're beating a dead horse here. Yeah. And it was repetition over and over. And
you're missing the and then what?
You need to move on. Yeah. And he didn't. And look, when you're on a camera and you're in front of a bunch of people, can it be hard? Sure. It may be Vivek, it may be Haley. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Haley or Pence or Vivek. Or Scott could be too. Any of them, really. And I would have guessed maybe Hutchinson. But again, with Hutchinson, I would say if Hutchinson was in this debate, and he's not, it would be either him or it would be Christie, who would take the anti-Trump angle. Yeah. And since Hutchinson, thank goodness, is continually marginalized, he's not going to really be able to, and he may be off camera trying to hit Trump harder, but it's not working because his poll numbers are not there. And look, Christie's really aren't either, but he's trying to do what he can.
Your numbers are never there. They never have been.
Right.
Get off.
And so regarding that, I think you're right as far as if anyone's going to come out swinging at Trump, it's him. Pence might take some shots. Haley might take some shots.
Depending on the applause that Christie gets, which he's not going to get a lot.
It could be, or it depends on the issue. If they, so here's one
too.
thing I could see potentially, and they didn't really. Okay, they did very early in the debate. They didn't really get into it much.
Yeah.
If you remember, Haley, and people didn't expect this.
Yeah.
Really hit. We got to get spending down. Our own Republican Party has screwed us.
Oh, yeah.
Because even during the Trump years, and look, this is something that I have a beef.
Not wrong. Yeah.
Right, I have a beef with Trump on this.
100%.
Millions and trillions of dollars spent.
100%.
And look, it's like, okay, broken clock right twice a day again. Yeah. Well done, well said.
There's your 2 times.
but again, then the criticism is, all right, yeah, exactly, there's your 2 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Then again, though, it's like, all right, but no plan, like, what do we do here?
Right,
and look, again, are any of them really going into how to be fiscally conservative? Not particularly. So it's not like I'm trying to be fair to all of them here, not unduly critical if you're on this one issue. So anyway, all this said, and I know I'm going on and on because I want to keep having you chime in, is regarding substance versus platitudes. If there's an issue that comes up, this is that one. Because Trump has said, we are not going to cut Medicare. We're not going to cut Social Security. If someone, and it's probably going to be Christie, it might not necessarily be, brings that up and says, I can't believe Donald Trump said that, and like you just said, it gets some applause, I could totally see other Republicans lining up and saying, yeah, what's Trump thinking about that? Because it'll be popular. It's popular in front of camera in this debate. Now, is it popular with Republican voters overall? That I'm not so sure about, because Trump's votes or polling votes are really up there.
Yeah.
So at least the Republican base is saying, look, is it important to curb spending? I think overall the Republican base agrees.
Yeah, 100%.
But they're at least not saying that's a deal breaker with 100%. Trump. They're saying, look, we might disagree with Trump on that, but he's still got our vote on all the other stuff, with the exception of those who are looking at the other Republicans. You know. So I'm just saying, that doesn't seem to be a deal breaker with Republicans right now, which is, look, should that make us as conservatives or right-wingers look in the mirror? I think it should. I think we should say, okay, what's important? Is it this other stuff that Trump's really good on, or is it out-of-control spending? And also, look at what else Trump is saying about spending, because, look, he does rip waste, fraud, and abuse in the deep state, all the spending, sure. But again, you got to look from different perspectives in terms of, do you want to go with X, Y, and Z position with Trump, or these guys are talking a really good game about getting spending under control. Who do you trust, et cetera, et cetera?
Unfortunately, so my thing is I think that's the one area that you can attack pretty much anybody on, the spending thing, without getting any or too much flack about it, is because, especially this debate, I don't think people are really concerned. I mean, okay, yes, they're concerned about spending. Right, they're concerned about their money. They're concerned about, the debt of America, 100%, as they should be. But I do not believe that most voters are as concerned about. I believe it's more like a secondary or third issue. Yeah, tertiary issue right now. I think more people are worried about the major things of like LGBT and
well said.
Abortion and everything else. So I think those are like your primaries, and then you got like secondaries of like Ukraine. Ukraine might be a primary for other people, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, I think that anybody can get away with attacking Trump on the spending, personally, just because of the fact of, again, it's going to sway some guys that are like, oh yeah, spending is like my big thing. It's like, yeah, of course. But for the most part, I think people would own up to the, like, yeah, spending was a bad idea, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think they're going to be as concerned about it, so it's not really going to matter. So attacking Trump on it, sure, you can do it. Is it really a good idea? It's not really doing anything, though.
I see.
So like anybody can jump in on it, in my opinion, but it's not going to do anything positively. And I think Nikki Haley will jump in there. I think Pence will. I think the only person it possibly could hurt would be Pence. It's like, okay, you're jumping in on this, and you were part of it, though. So it's like,
that's a decent line of attack.
Yeah.
Hey, if you had a problem with this, you were vice president.
You were literally the guy in his ear.
And you know why we have a feeling. What did they say to Biden all the time in 2020? If you had a problem with President Obama doing this, how come you went along with it?
Exactly.
And, he excused it or whatever.
Right, exactly.
Or was okay with it and lied and said he wasn't. Because he's a liar, right?
100%.
So to your point, I could totally see that. If people are hitting Trump, then someone turns around and says, okay, Vice President Pence, or former Vice President
You just
Pence,
said this, yeah.
Well, or even if before he says that, they try and cut him off or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a million directions that can go. So that's an interesting point regarding, now, is there a possibility, to your point, they don't even hit spending at all? I would say, though, that is an issue that Trump, and look, not just Trump, other Republicans, kind of like you're saying, are weak on. So they could try to hit Trump on that. I don't know if they're going to bring up COVID or not, because the problem is, does Fox News want to have the discussion about the vaccine, for example? Probably not, because Fox News is corporate media in a lot of ways. Now, will a candidate bring it up? Maybe. And if that happens, will there be 30 seconds to respond and 30 seconds to respond here? Possibly. So could that come up? Maybe. That should be a primary issue. It's probably, unfortunately, a lot of people's minds secondary. It really should be in people's minds, burned in there. They tried to lock us in our homes, man. You know, that should be a bigger issue than it is. Even though it's better now, it's not to say CDC won't try it again. Of course they want to try it again. You know, they're power hungry, right? And so regarding what else they talk about, I think that there's a likelihood, and we were talking about this in the prep, about abortion. Look, did abortion come up last time? It did. Are these candidates going to say to themselves, yeah, we had a good talk about abortion last time, let's not talk about it this time?
No,
there's
around it.
Okay, there's a possibility that they will talk about other things depending on how the moderators present things. But should anyone say the word abortion, I think the gloves pretty much come off. I think that's where it's like, okay, let's talk about, this might be something that Christie brings up, although I don't think Christie will bring up Trump's abortion stance, because I have a feeling Christie's is pretty bad too. I'm not saying Trump's is bad, I'm talking about it's different. And I think that's one thing I noticed, by the way, in the last debate is Ramaswamy and Christie were not asked about abortion. And I wonder why. It's like, okay, why was that not asked?
But you had people getting skipped on questions.
Sure, debate, but that was, I just noticed the pattern.
I understand.
I was like, okay, that's interesting. I wonder why they were not asked and why they didn't try to chime in.
And I definitely want to know Ramaswamy's point of view.
Sure, especially for people that are all hyped up about him, right?
And especially on his views, his religion. People are concerned about his religion.
Of course.
You know? So
well, and that's something where this is a problem with Ramaswamy. That's a big one. Is when he says my faith in God with no S at the end.
It's like you're literally Hindu. You believe in gods, not God.
Yeah, you can't. And then people.
God's plural. Not.
I had a guy actually say to me, he says he believes in God, just not the God of the Jews and the Christians. And it's like, that's not a Hindu. You're either a Hindu or you're not.
He doesn't believe in the God of the Bible in general. He believes in gods. Hinduism believes in gods.
So it's dishonest when he says my faith in God. It literally... I would love the meme value of someone turning to him and saying, which one?
Exactly.
That would be
I'm not
great.
disagreeing with you at all.
That would be a perfect moment of put this guy in the hot seat and say, let's put our cards on the table. You're not a Christian. Now,
you're openly Hindu. So
people
which is
can,
fine,
fine, I guess, look, we have freedom of religion here.
100%.
But don't lie and say God without an S at the end. I mean, that's just not.
Exactly.
That's a politician.
Now flip it. Let's say he was Muslim and said God. Now, I mean, at least you then believe in one singular God.
It's more honest, but he would...
No, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with that.
A Muslim politician, though, would only say that and not at all talk about, last week I was in mosque.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, to be fair, when Jewish politicians or Christian politicians run, they don't typically refer to where they worship.
Right, exactly.
They might just only in passing mention religion. There's not a whole lot of religious talk and debates, to be fair. But I'm just talking about in terms of how he markets himself as, I have faith in God. That's, again... Will anyone go after him on that? The problem...
Probably not.
Here's the problem. If they do, they got to do it with Haley, because Haley's not a Christian either. She's very much like an agnostic when it comes to, well, I have a little bit of Christianity, I have a little bit of Hinduism, and I have a little bit of... Well, I don't know exactly. And
I'm that coexist sticker on the back of your car.
Right. Yeah, but not the one with the Islamic crescent chasing all the others away.
Yeah, that's the only one that she doesn't have on there. Yeah. She just has,
Have you seen that one where it has the Islamic crescent chasing the other ones away? It's pretty funny.
Yeah, she is definitely the embodiment of the coexist sticker.
Yeah.
And again, there's a chance that Ramaswamy could be the coexist. But I mean, to an extent, that's essentially what Hinduism is for the most part.
Here's the issue. If they critique him on that, and I think the conservatives and right-wingers just shouldn't care about this.
Right.
Of course, corporate media is going to say, how dare they attack him, that's racist.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're going to make it a race issue, even though religion is not a race. You know, that's just how stupid these people
yep,
are.
let's turn into the left now.
Right.
Making it a race thing.
To your point, they're going to out-left the left,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
attempt to. And so basically say, well, look, leftism is working over here. Let's put it in the Republican Party.
It's like, it's not working, but
no,
okay.
you're right. Well, it is. We just don't like it, right?
Yeah.
So it's evil, right? That's why we want to defeat evil and
Working
not
and destroying things.
Yeah, exactly. It's working. It's like the same way that cancer does eradicate your body.
Yeah, exactly.
It accomplishes something. It's just not a bad. It's
Yeah,
not a good
exactly.
thing.
It's accomplishing something.
Yeah,
the
it's a
death
bad
of you.
thing.
It's not accomplishing what you wanted to
Right,
accomplish. That's
right.
for sure. Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. So that's what I would say. Is there a chance that attack is made? It's very low.
Yeah.
But should it be made? Absolutely, because
Yeah.
it's dishonest, and so it's like
It's
I'm
an
not.
oxymoron almost to an extent. I mean,
How so?
I mean, just okay, oxymoron was a bad choice of words there, but I mean, it's like I don't know. I mean, it's a joke within itself. You
Sure,
know,
I
as
get
far
that.
as like just God, and it's like, no, wait a minute. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So okay. Regarding other substances that they get to, I think there's a lot of talk about the economy, because there was last time. I think there was more. There's probably going to be talk about the border. Probably at least something mentioned about guns, at least quickly. There was nothing really talked about the Second Amendment last time,
Yeah.
to our surprise. Will there be talk? This is something that could come up. First, will there be talk about Ukraine again? Probably in that same vein. Will there be talk about military spending and that? I could see that too. Will there be talk about transgenderism? If it is, it's going to be very superficial, like we had last time. Of hey, Governor Haley, or former Governor Haley, you've made some comments about biological males swimming against biological females,
Right.
and then she clarified, and then there's like, okay, guys, move on.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, we need to talk about that for all of society.
Because that's a primary issue for a lot of people.
I agree. Not everybody, but I would say probably a majority.
Yeah, I mean, independent voters, honestly, a lot of independent voters, definitely a lot of Republican voters.
Sure.
I'd say for probably majority of America that's trying to figure out something aside from Biden, it's a big, the LGBT and the trans thing are like big primary issues.
Right, and the reason why is it's like, what direction are we going to go?
Exactly.
As a country.
Like, is it okay? Are we with Biden and everything and that whole regime over there that's like, this is okay and yeah, trans our kids and chemically castrate them 100%? Or are we like figuring something else out of like, at least in the quote unquote middle of like, yeah, as soon as you're 18, you're fine. You know, like I think that's what people are trying to figure out of like, where are we going to go? Because we're not, people that are like trying to figure it out, they're not okay with the children thing for the most part.
Interesting thing too. This is something that might or might not happen. This would be an interesting exchange of ideas here.
Yeah.
Is who of everybody in this discussion regarding these candidates? Okay, there's kind of two questions here.
Yeah.
Who has a record, and not only a record, but talks about regularly about the LGBT and how dangerous this movement is? Governor Ron DeSantis.
Yeah,
right.
DeSantis.
And not only that, he has a record, to be fair.
100%.
Now, who also...
But don't say gay, Bill.
From what so-called.
Yeah, exactly.
If only they could get so lucky.
Right, I know, right?
You know, but regardless, now Ramaswamy, to his credit, he was the only candidate on the stage to throw out a quick line. Not only, we don't need puberty blockers for children.
Yeah.
He said there are only two genders.
Yep.
And he said that in his closing statement, so maybe that was a safe play, I don't know. But he's been kind of hard on that too. But again, who is hard on that and has a record in Florida? That would be Governor Ron DeSantis.
Right, exactly.
So this will be an interesting thing, although I don't think it's going to happen. Again, unless it depends, I think, really on DeSantis.
Right.
Will DeSantis say, hey guys, I did this in Florida. Anyone want to chime in? What's your stance?
That's how DeSantis'
What's your
numbers would
stance?
go up. Is if he just started throwing everything as far as, well, my record. I mean, that gets him, in my opinion, that probably brings him up to, like, competing with Trump, because then people start to get the, record thing. You know, DeSantis is talking about his record, and it's like, let's compare the records.
My point is, who can pick up, I would say, overall, there are moderates on the right.
Yeah.
But most of, your parents, my parents, that kind of conservative.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Who embodies their values on this issue the most?
DeSantis.
It's going to be people that are willing to say there's only two genders and we're not changing the kids.
Right, yeah.
And then in a bold way, do something about it.
And also school choice.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
which
do
falls
something.
in line with the transgenderism.
It's not the same thing, but it's connected. You're
it
right.
piggybacks.
Right.
I mean, it's
exactly.
a good piggyback for sure.
Exactly. So interesting thing for DeSantis to do. This would, I think, be a very good line of attack. Is say, all right, I'm the social conservative on this issue. Anyone else want to chime in? You say you're against people competing together. What do you think about chemical castration of kids?
Yep.
For Haley, for example.
Yeah,
him talking to Haley.
Yeah.
Pence, you've been strangely silent, Vice President Pence. What do you have to say about any of this? Frankly, everybody on stage, you've been strangely silent about this.
Yep.
You might talk about it on the campaign trail in passing, but you're not actually addressing. And then to your point, what you're saying, guys, this is a big issue for our voters. Like we're saying. Are we going to go down this path with Biden and the left, or are we going to go behind door number 3? Now, what's behind door number 3? This is kind of what you're saying. Is it limits on children, or is it limit on children and adults? That's the question mark. And look, let's articulate the position and figure out what we're doing, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that DeSantis is strong on that issue.
Oh, 100%.
Will he go on the offensive?
Hopefully.
I hope.
But DeSantis,
that
I
would
don't
be
think he's that guy.
That would be a good line of attack.
Yeah.
I think it's more likely, although this probably won't happen, but it's still more likely that DeSantis actually bring this up and actually going on the attack. He might bring it up quickly, but going on the attack and saying what I just said, unlikely. I do think more likely than that, although it's by a 0.5 percentage point, is someone else saying, we've got a guy on the stage that's hard line. He's all about the hardcore right. And then what DeSantis will do is then he'll go into defensive posture.
Christie would be the one to do that.
I don't know who else besides him. There's probably
not going to be Scott.
Someone else up there probably will say, look, that's a little too far.
Nikki Haley. That's the only other one I could see doing it.
I don't know. That would be interesting.
Maybe Ramaswamy, but I don't know.
That would be interesting. That would be interesting. Okay, who's going to launch the line? And maybe the moderators. That's one thing,
That's fair, too, yeah.
And then to hear, because when I say DeSantis will go into defensive posture, that's not with a negative connotation. No, it'll be a strong defense.
Yeah, you got to
because he's able to show one thing.
You got to play defense to turn it into offense.
One thing he could do, and this is just a fact, is he legislatively said you cannot have children in pride parades, and they started getting canceled left and right.
Yeah.
Not by the government, but the leadership of like, hey, let's have a pride parade. Yeah. We're canceling the event, and it's like that would give him a chance to rub his chin and say, why did that happen? That almost looks like they're after our kids. Yeah. And look, when you have footage of them running around chanting, saying, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children.
And twerking in front of our kids, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, the list goes on
You have to, I forget who said it first, say to yourselves, when people tell you who they are, you kind of need to believe them.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Right? They're saying they're coming for our children. We should probably believe them.
Yeah.
So that would be a strong defense. And look, would that get thunderous applause? Abso-freaking-lutely. Unless the audience is filled with just shills and moderates.
I still doubt.
It could be. Yeah, well, I mean, heck, they cheered and applauded at some random times before in the first debate. It depends on who's sitting there.
What if they just had an applause button? There was nobody
Nobody
was there, applause.
I mean, does anyone cheer when Biden's speaking? I mean,
that's the point. Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen the audience.
Definitely an applause button for him. No question about that.
Or more accurately, someone off camera is holding up a sign that says "Now clap."
Shoot, there's nobody there at the.
Yeah.
You know what? That's convinced me. There is nobody there at those Biden speeches ever. It's all CGI and applause buttons. That's all it is. Nobody's actually there. It's CGI. We got like AI technology.
Five real people up front, and they never pan back because there's no one back there at all.
No, everything else is CGI and like AI created. Like, yep. I'm convinced.
We're convinced. Hey, they're as real as the votes Biden got.
Right. Exactly.
We'll put it that way.
Exactly.
They're as real as Biden's victory in 2020, right?
Precisely.
That's how it is. So that's great. All right, so we've gone into a lot on just how we think this could go. We got to go now into, I think, an interesting angle, which is some of what we were talking about in the prep, in terms of our thoughts on the candidates in general. Yeah. Now, one thing we need to talk about, I think, at least quickly, is Trump. And also Trump's legal stuff, very quickly, not long drawn out. But before we go there, I want to go in a bit of an interesting direction, which is, I think, for you and then for me, who we like right now, and I'm talking Republican primary, and then who we don't like. And so I think it'd be best
Trump included, or
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So let's go ahead and articulate that. Before we go into who we don't like, let's go into who we like. So who, if you have, let's say you're walking into a booth, and it's like, all right, Nathan, everyone that is currently running is running. Who are you like, yes, I'm going for this guy? Who would you name? I
mean, the only guy that I could probably do that 100% and say yes, just because of his record, the only guy that has the record there would probably be DeSantis.
Okay.
As far as like, yeah, I'm like, all right, cool, he's my guy. I possibly could do it with Ramaswamy, but the problem is I don't have the record and I don't have enough yet, like substance, like you speak of, from him yet. So it's like maybe. But again, the guy that I definitely could go in just because of the record and everything, like, you know, again, if it happened today, it'd be DeSantis. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah, DeSantis. What about you?
So no one else, really?
No.
Okay. Before I go into me, interesting question, I guess. So let's go candidate by candidate.
Yeah.
Christy, who cares?
Yeah,
Haley.
Don't even ask.
What is your right? What is your big thing against Haley? Just because I think it's important for the viewers. What if we have a viewer out here saying, "What's wrong with Haley?"
100%. Stance on Ukraine. As far as that goes, her foreign policy is crap, in my opinion. As far as like, oh yeah, you know, we're gonna help Ukraine as much as possible. Essentially, is what she says. She didn't really say that, but she definitely hints at it.
I would say she said that.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. So, like, the money spending for other countries and everything, not America first, that kills it for me, for her. And just her record in the sense of, stick her finger in the wind, which way is blowing type thing. You know, she did it with South Carolina a couple times, more than a couple, but, yeah. So it's like that's my thing on Nikki Haley there is like, yeah, I'm not willing to toss my eggs into that basket at all, because again, if it's which way is the wind blowing type thing, no. And then again, your foreign policy sucks. You really don't have anything. And also, again, as far as what she said about the abortion debate, I had an issue with when she brought up abortion. As far as, again, demonizing the women, agreed. Don't need to demonize the women. However, demonizing the topic, yes, it does need to be demonized. I'm sorry. Abortion is a demonic topic. No one will ever change my mind on that. So, sorry. With that, you're out. You're cut.
Fair. Very fair.
So, yeah. So, those are like my, I guess, 2-3 major issues with her. Tim Scott, I just don't think he's the guy. And also, he gives the political answers as far as, like, he's all, here's the problem, but he's not, here's the solution.
It's almost like, to me, of like, if this guy were reading, literally reading a list of, these are the Republican talking points, it's like that.
Exactly. So it's like, so far, unless he gives me substance as far as, like, this is what we need to do about it, and this is the plan or whatever, unless he gives me a plan, the dude's just reading off.
Now,
talking points.
That said, to interrupt you, the good thing about him, I will say, for Black America is, hey, Black America, you're not a victim.
No, I'll agree with that. I support him in that too. And like, it's it's a good. He does have a good perspective on that. I will say he's very strong on that and has mentioned that, not necessarily just in debates, but he's mentioned that before. Just as far as told Black America essentially, like, hey, we're not victims. The media might make us out to be, and the left might make us out to be, but this is what reality is, essentially. Is kind of. So yeah, he's a good reality check guy as far as for like Black America, and as far as that goes. So yeah, I like him in that sense. I guess he's kind of like, he's the Ben Carson. He's of this time, I guess, because Ben Carson not in it, but he's too quiet to an extent. I mean, he's louder than Carson, but he's just reading talking points. He doesn't really have a plan. So I've got a problem as far as your record doesn't really back anything up either.
Well, and with a number of these people, sorry to interrupt again.
No, you're fine.
It's like, why are you running?
Exactly.
And that's a big
Who's
thing.
calling for Tim Scott, right?
Right. Why? What do you have that's unique and interesting?
Right, exactly. And the only thing that I think he's got interesting is as far as, like we said, is the Black America thing, which again, that's great. But is that what we need right now? Is it something we need? Sure. 100%. But is that like the dire issue? And if that's all you bring to the table, again, I'm sorry, I'm out.
I would say it's actually like an increasingly dire issue regarding like when you've got people like Abraham X. Kendi who are black people that are like telling people constantly that they're victims.
Yeah.
Is that good? But I don't think we need that in the Oval Office necessarily.
Exactly.
Right? That's my point, and I'm with you on that. So unless you had more to say about him, what's your hold up with Pence? Because I kind of cut you off about J6, or at least I said let's come back to that later.
So
go ahead.
So J6 is the big thing on me. I think it kills everything he says. At least that for me, right? I know that he says a lot of great stuff, but it's like, and you want to bring up the Trump years and the great years, and again, I get you have to ride the highs, but at the same point, you're the one that also people blame. Now we can get into the if you are or aren't the guy that screwed your own guy or not, but like you're the guy that people blame for screwing Trump over, or at least was the last line of defense. So like you are the sole reason that the downfall kept happening to some people, so I think that that's kind of hurting it. Also, I don't think that he's starting to give a lot more political answers, in my opinion, and he also falls back on, how do I say this without, your answer to everything cannot just be because I'm a Christian, especially in the area of abortion, right? Well, because I'm a Christian, I think that, the Supreme Court decision was great. Okay. But then what?
And to clarify, you mean the correction of Roe v. Wade, not Roe v. Wade. When you say
you're right.
Supreme Court decision, you mean what?
The second decision on Roe v. Wade.
In 2022, I think it was.
2022.
June.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So that's kind of my problem with him, and just again, it kind of falls back on his record of like, man, you're trying to ride these highs that you, to some people and even myself, kind of shot down essentially. So the question is, are you really with us? Are you really with it? Also, the Ukraine thing. Ukraine with him is a big issue for me because he really got hounded by Tucker Carlson during what was it
was a blaze. I think it was called Faith and Family.
Faith and Freedom or Faith and Family, whatever. Well, yeah, but that had a huge turnout and everything, which was great. But that's issue for me as far as like just he got hounded and he's like,
we saw it in the first debate too.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you're kind of putting Ukraine before Americans. You're just not and people are calling you out for it, and you're saying no, that's not what I'm saying, but that's what you're saying. So yeah, just that alone kind of it's like yeah, you got to go too because if you're for sure if you're not America first, you're definitely out. For me. So, not America first, and we're kind of iffy on the Ukraine thing. Yeah, bye, for the most part. Who's next? Ramaswamy?
Yeah, I'll just say quickly about Pence. No disagreement there. Real quick, though, so it sounded like you would consider Ramaswamy even though you're putting yourself along with DeSantis regarding who you would vote for today.
Yeah.
What are your holdups with Ramaswamy? You kind of mentioned them quickly. Anything else you want to further sketch out about? Do you think maybe it's not sincere? You said there's a lack of a record.
Yeah.
What all is there?
Yeah, so it's trying to figure out if this guy's sincere on it.
Okay.
It's the left and people in general have tried calling him out for, plagiarism of speeches and stuff like, oh, look, we literally saw Obama say the same stuff and Ramaswamy's saying basically word for word, just different in a Republican, outfit. It's like, yeah, okay, so that does make you question, okay, the sincerity of this and everything. So, yeah. And then also, again, the record thing. And then also, his religion, again, you say, that really makes me question the sincerity because he says my faith in God. Okay, now wait a minute. But you believe in God. So again, that's not up for debate. That is you are openly Hindu, which okay, cool, whatever. You're openly Hindu, so therefore Hindus believe in gods, not God. And regardless of if we're talking about God of the Bible or not, they don't believe in just a God. They believe in gods, you know. So that makes me question a lot of other things of like, okay, so first off, do you even understand your own religion? So I got to question your sincerity of your faith in God. And then I have to question, so then therefore that kind of makes me question, do you even understand what you're saying in general? And where's the sincerity on everything else? So that's kind of the hold up, and yeah, the record backing things up like that.
Okay,
so, yeah.
well, and I want to go to you now because one person you did not mention was Trump, and we talked about it a little bit in the prep, and I want to hear that. But to be fair, Trump went in with no record. He was a businessman, and that's it.
No, 100%.
And Ramaswamy would do the same thing. So we've seen in our lifetime, just a few short years ago, that you can get in there without political experience, political experience, and do great.
Right.
So I understand that point, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that alone. And look, you're not saying that's your one thing is no record.
Yeah.
You're saying, well, that's one thing, but there's also 3 or 4 other things too.
Yeah, there's also the sincerity issue and everything.
Right. I guess I'm just saying to the audience, don't let one thing hold you back.
Oh yeah, no,
you know.
100%.
And so to move on now to a person you did not say, because you brought up when I said if you were to vote, you brought up DeSantis and you said possibly Ramaswamy. You did not say Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So please go into why.
So as far as Trump goes, there's been some recent, I guess, posts or just
Truth Social.
Yeah, True Social stuff
Posts.
and everything, and the backstepping on the abortion debate is a big issue for me. Yeah, I mean, abortion is. I will ride or die on abortion 100%. Like,
I don't know if that was the best analogy.
Yeah, they had
best phrase of words.
Yeah, but no, I mean, if DeSantis said, "Hey, I'm for abortion," you know, okay, bye, I'm out. You know, I'm gone. Like, so this is one of the issues where you're starting to step back on it. You haven't completely like disowned what you did as far as appointed the justices that allowed Roe v. Wade now to be not a thing. So, but you are not owning up to it as much as you could or should. And also sitting here saying, when you are attacking pro-lifers saying, hey, you know, pro-lifers didn't have a stance on this before I was around, it's like, no, that's not even remotely true. Pro-lifers have been out there protesting at abortion clinics.
It was a truth because it was on Truth Social.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry.
Precisely, yeah. And
it's in the name.
Plus, it came from the truth master himself, you know, Donald Trump. But, no, so when you're sitting here saying of like, oh, yeah, you are attacking a major base or a major support base of yours, especially because, again, you are the guy that appointed these justices that got rid of the Roe v. Wade decision originally. So it's like, hey, that should be something you need to own up to, especially for this base that is a big support of your support of you in general. And so him attacking and even just again stating that, oh, they didn't have these stances until I came along and they didn't have strong stances. It's like, no, that's not a thing. This has been since Roe v. Wade was a thing. These guys have been at abortion clinics. These guys have been. There were people that were doing much more work. You know, again, I appreciate all the work that he did. You know, again, yes, you were a gigantic voice for life, 100%. I'm not disagreeing at all. But to say that, oh, pro-lifers didn't have this before, that's just false. Because, again, we had seen you didn't see it as much because abortion people kind of just, it went to the background of like, oh, it's a thing. But, I mean, you still saw on the news occasionally of like, hey, there's these people protesting at abortion clinics. You know, the news covers it more now because of the fact that, you know, it's risen back up to the, you know, talk of the stage or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so that's a problem of just attacking pro-lifers in general. Of like, okay, so now I got a question: where do you stand on it now, and what are you going to do when you come into office as far as abortion goes? Okay. And again, leaving it to states. Okay, cool. I still worry, you know, as far as I worry as far as, is that really what you're going to do, or is that just going to be playing the safe answer? But yeah, so I've got a problem with him attacking his base on that, and especially the pro-life base. And then also the recent video of him autographing a woman's chest area. Now, again, the argument on that one, and grabbing this woman's chest area as well, for better grip to autograph whatever, make the argument, whatever. I have a problem with that morally, as a man, and just in general. The argument there is, well, she let him do it. Okay, yeah, you're not wrong as far as she allowed him to do it, 100%. But at the same point, even if a woman allows you to do it as a man, and this comes from my belief, Christian belief, also as well, and just my moral beliefs, is as a man, that is not just because an opportunity presents itself does not mean you do it. I mean, a store leaves its doors open, at closing time. That does not mean, oh, well, the opportunity to steal something, they're basically saying, hey, you can steal. No, that doesn't mean you do it, So that has a issue with me in the sense of, all right, so how far, because I don't want something like that in the White House. A person that acts like that. The President of the United States. I have a problem with Joe Biden sniffing women. Why would I not have a problem with Donald Trump, sitting here signing a woman's chest area, and not only that, but then grabbing for, again, more support, whatever, a woman's chest area. So if I have a problem with Joe Biden over here doing this and saying stuff like this, I then, just to back up what I'm saying about Biden, I've got to also back up what I'm saying about Trump as well. Now, again, they're not the same people. I understand, but at the same point, it's not something that I want in the White House. It's not something I want in the White House. Now, again, I'm gonna have problems with anybody because you're never gonna agree 100% with somebody. So because nobody's perfect, but this is something that it's unprofessional and unpresidential, like, that should not be done, and as a man, I have a problem with it in general. So, yeah, and again, that woman was not right for allowing him to do that. And if the man behind her was his husband, I question, hey, dude, why are you okay with him even doing that, remotely? So there's a lot of questions I have, but again, for Donald Trump, I'm sorry, you can't be doing that. And it's one of those things of, yeah, that's not okay, and especially if you're running for president, that's not the image that I want for president. So, yeah, okay. Those are some things for me personally.
Okay, I think we covered the candidates and everything like that. So I'm going to have a bit of a long answer. I'm going to try to keep it short because I'm trying to answer the question I asked you.
Yeah, for sure.
So who would I walk into that voting booth and vote for, and who would I not? At this point, my first choice, and this is not going to be a surprise, is Donald J. Trump.
Yeah.
I will say, if by some stretch he is legally disqualified, number one, I'm going to cry foul because I think it's bad and wrong, and I will have serious questions about our constitutional republic now falling to a liberal democracy.
As would I.
And collapsing all that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And I know you would too. Yeah.
Right.
So, but if that were to happen, or by some stretch DeSantis were to come on top, would I vote for DeSantis in the general election? There's a high likelihood I would.
Right.
Now, why is DeSantis not my first choice? Because I've already said who my first choice is. So let's go into, again, Chris Christie, who cares?
Yeah.
Haley, you did a very good job of sketching out what was said. I really don't think I disagree with a single thing you said there.
Yeah.
Pence, I think similarly.
Yeah.
Great job describing that. Scott, also, great job describing that. I'm just going to say ditto on that. Now, when it comes to DeSantis, a big thing came up, and this was on the talk about Ukraine, was, all right, would you cut aid to Ukraine or would you give aid to Ukraine? And Ron Wellman was the only person on that entire darn stage who raised his hand.
That's fair.
That was a big thing where if DeSantis has raised his hand, I would have said, wow, that's awesome. But he didn't. And then he went on to try and ride both sides and say, okay, look, we will give more aid, but it won't be against America first because as long as Europe pushes their weight, we'll push with them. And it's like, here's the issue. Europe this entire time has been giving aid. I don't think that's been the problem. It's not like Germany has never given aid. I've been reading this pretty extensively. They're giving aid all the time. And my fear would be with DeSantis, oh, look, Germany gave one assault rifle. Come on, America, let's give them 30 jets. Now, that's extreme. I'm just saying, that's not literally what would happen. I'm just saying, by proportion, America would give way more than Europe would.
Right.
So that's a major concern I would have, and this war would just go on and on and on and on and on, right? And it's not America's quarrel. No. So that's a big issue.
I want out, 100%.
Right. And so that's a big issue. And the other thing, and I'll kind of go into a little bit of this, but I can go into more about why I think Trump's the man for the job, perhaps, as we keep going. But real quick, to respond to some of what you said. So you sent me the video of the signing, and I want to give full context. So, yes, he did. Then he also handed out drinks and sandwiches to people, working people in some restaurant, right?
No problem with that.
So that happened. Yeah, I know you don't have a problem with that. That would be weird.
So I have a problem with him with the sandwiches.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe he chose Jimmy John's when it should have been Jersey Mike's.
Exactly.
So, this is a travesty.
That would be a Democratic thing to do.
Right. So that was, I know that's not your problem. So, number one. You kind of said this, but I think this is a matter of emphasis and focus.
Yeah.
Is the woman responsible? I think more so than Trump, and here's why. She walked up to him and said, "Hey, sir, can you please sign?" Puts him in the position of either saying yes or no. Now, did he say yes? Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Now, you said something which I don't know. I would need to rewatch the video. Don't particularly want to.
Yeah.
I don't think he grabbed her chest. I think he touched part of her shirt, like you were kind of saying, to get a better angle of signing.
Yeah.
Now, when I see this, the reason why, and I'm not necessarily discounting it now, is it a bad look? I'll just say yes.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, and you kind of said this in the prep, is do celebrities do this all the time? Hey, Bruce Willis, sign this. Hey, just sign this.
But it's still wrong.
Let me finish. So, do they do that? Yeah. And does this look like what a pop star would do? Sure.
Yep.
Am I okay with that? No. But we got to put some amount of responsibility. And I'm not saying you didn't do this, but I think it's more on the person asking for it overall. Now, again, is he responsible for picking up that pen? Sure. Should he have done that? No. But my stance is it's not disqualifying because she asked him to, and I didn't see him touch her chest. I saw him right on her shirt. Still not a good look. That's my viewpoint on that.
Yeah.
Okay, and you have a disagreement. I'm not questioning your disagreement.
Yeah.
I can understand that completely. That's respectful. No. That's respect. So to move on to the other thing about the Truth Social post. So you are correct, but I want to continue with the post here. So I read some of this. So number one, he says, to your credit, hey, pro-lifers have had no stance ever since Roe v. Wade. I don't know how. He basically just said they had no stance until I came along.
Yeah, I am the guy.
So is that false? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you and
just
I,
factually false.
I don't remember if you and I have discussed this, but I remember being a kid and people would push strollers that had baby dolls in it and have signs saying "Stop abortion now." The pro-life activists have been working hard for years.
Glenn Beck, one of them.
So many. Yeah. I mean, countless. And before Trump came along, and they kept on during the Trump years. And here's the other thing. And look, and you didn't discount this. Did Trump go to pro-life rallies as president?
Yes.
Yes. Was he the first president to do that as president? Yes.
100%.
So he was a very pro-life president. You said something, and I have to respectfully disagree with this, of you need to sketch out your stance. You're not being clear on this. I think he is. I think he's saying pretty clearly this is a state issue now. Regarding Roe v. Wade, that's been overturned, and you're welcome. That's pretty much, agree or disagree. That's Trump's stance. You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's down to the states. And then also, he's been pretty clear, I think, saying, I'm an exceptions guy. Ronald Reagan was, and so am I. Rape, incest, the life of the mother. Now, you and I don't have to agree with that. You and I don't agree with that. We're no exceptions guys.
Yeah.
But he's pretty, that's not a clarity thing on his part. Now, do I disagree with him on that? Yeah. Do I wish he went further on that? Yeah.
Right.
So here's the thing. So also in that same interview where he said that at the CNN town hall, where it was kind of funny in a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
He also was asked 3 or 4 times, if a pro-life bill countrywide comes on your desk, would you veto it? And he would not say no 4 times in a row. So this is what I tell
he gave the political answer on that one.
So this is what I tell my voters on this, to try to give him the benefit of the doubt. And maybe wrong, you can tell me what you think about this.
Yeah.
Is I view that as him, as a quarterback, not telegraphing his passes. If you constantly pass to number 17, eventually the opposition is going to go, look, guys, he's going to go to 17. If you fake the 17, then go to number 21, there's a less chance of that happening. So one thing that he did do in 2016 was, did he talk about abortion? Sure.
Yeah.
But he didn't make it his center point. If you remember, the center point was the wall,
the border,
the wall, the border, the economy, and staying out of the wars in a lot of ways.
And a little bit of China, too.
China and tariffs, and So, 100%. But did he also say, look, I'm pro-life? Sure.
Yes.
He did do that. And look, again, very pro-life president. So what I see here is similarly, he talks a lot about inflation. He talks a lot about the war in Ukraine. He's hitting a lot of the same, and he talks constantly about wanting to have a big bunch of deportations when he comes back in office.
No, 100%.
I see in a lot of ways some of a repeat of 2016, and I think that he's not trying to give the left more ammo, because one thing about it is, and we know this because this is how the left treats hardcore pro-lifers.
Oh, yeah.
These people want to control women's bodies, yada, yada. Now, do they do that with Trump? Yeah, but at least he's not loading a pistol and handing it to him.
Yeah.
To me, you can call it a political answer, and on the one hand, I understand literally it kind of is, but I view that as a fake, and he's trying not to telegraph his passes of, okay, this is what Trump's going to do.
Right.
Agree, disagree, want to hear your thoughts.
So, yeah, I can see where you... Yeah, it's not a... It's him trying to not telegraph his passes. For me, I think it's just a political answer. If you're not trying to lose or gain anything here, as far as, which is, again, it's what a quarterback does, is like, hey, we're just trying to play clock here, so it's like, that way we're not winning or losing anything. Worst thing is go backwards, If we move forward, we move forward. But if we go backwards, we're in trouble, so... So yeah, I can see that to an extent. The only problem that I have with that is where he makes the statement of he said that I would get something done that everybody likes, or that, like, somewhere along the lines of that is what he made the statement eventually during that CNN town hall. And I have a problem with that in the sense of there's no middle ground, in my opinion, for these two. So as far as I'd get something done for everybody to like. One, I just don't see it at all. And two, I have a problem with that because that means that I've got to give that, or at least our side has to give some ground to the left as far as the abortion debate goes, and I'm not willing to do that. So I could see your point on, it's trying not to telegraph the passes, but at the same point, when you give the answer of, I'd get something done that would, benefit everybody or everybody would like, it's like, I don't know. That gives me a little more hesitancy of, all right, so the ball, it gives me the 50-50 of like, all right, so I only have to guard two receivers versus, you're not telegraphing your passes, but you at least have, I know that these two, because you have four receivers, I know that these two are not getting the ball at all. I just got to pay attention to these two, so it's like, I do have a concern with that. It's more of a 50-50 thing instead of, not trying to give, an inch. Now, that's my stance on that. Also, just real quick, as far as your DeSantis thing with Ukraine, just to real quick cover that. The one thing I will say about DeSantis is, he said, he talked about, hey, as far as Ukraine goes, I would want Europe to step in and, as they give, we would consider essentially as far as what we need to give, et cetera, et cetera. The reason I'm kind of okay with that answer, again, I want out of this war. So, like, that's my...
Isn't that diametrically opposed to getting out of this war?
But here's the thing.
Okay.
NATO and Trump, NATO and everything else as far as he pulled us out of the Paris Accord, so not a thing anyway. But the big thing is the other countries aren't giving like America's giving. All right, cool. So if they started giving like us, or giving up to what Trump wanted, Trump would be fine with staying in it. The same is true for DeSantis. Again, I want out of the war. That's not the point. My point is, though, it's a similar tactic, in my opinion, to what Trump had with other, situations as far as domestic affairs and everything like that is like, well, these guys aren't putting in as much as we are, so therefore we're automatically out anyway, so therefore made it America first. But he still would have done said thing if these countries started putting in, as much or up to par of whatever his number was, essentially. And I mean, there's stuff that, that was essentially one of the reasons he pulled us out of the Paris Accord and everything else. So, I mean, because, we were the main ones putting in. So it leaves you to question, okay, we were the main ones to put it in, so yeah, America first, but then the question becomes, but in a theoretical area of, well, everybody's, putting in up to the numbers or whatever, are you still pulling America out because it was stupid anyway, or are you pulling out, or are you staying in because now everybody's putting in? So that's where I make the argument of it to me, at least, is a Trump-esque answer and acceptable to an extent, I guess. Because here's my thing, because Europe's not going to put up the numbers that America is, so therefore you pull out. Because Europe's not going to be able to do it to the numbers that you would want. Now, again, DeSantis would then have to set the numbers of what would be wanted. But Europe's not going to be able to do it. Like you even stated, no country is going to be able to put up the amount that we can and everything. So therefore, boom, bye, we're out. So in my opinion, I think it was a proper answer that just needed to be, I guess, dissected a little more, in my opinion. And I didn't find it necessarily anti-America first, in my opinion. In my opinion, it was America first in the sense of, yeah, I'll put in $10 if you put in the $10 first. I'm still protecting my money first as long as you put in something before I do. So, yeah, that's one of my things. Again, I'm still against being in it at all, but I'm just saying as far as that goes, I'm just trying to defend his answer in this sense. Not really agreeing with his answer. I'm just trying to defend his answer is what if that makes sense.
I see what you're saying, but again, I would revert to he had a chance to raise his hand and give the practical position. Yeah. He didn't, and I've kind of sketched out my problems with that. So, yeah. Real quick, the other thing I didn't mention about the True Social post is one thing that Trump went on to say is he said, and for 50 years, this is in the True Social post,
yeah.
For 50 years, Roe v. Wade was on the books, and I'm the one that got it overturned. And that is true. So the True Social post went on to say something that was true. And look, when it comes to abortion, I look at results. You want to talk about record. Does DeSantis have a good record as far as abortion goes in Florida? Yeah.
Yeah.
Does Trump? Yeah, I would just say that regarding abortion.
They both have, in my opinion, equal abortion records. The reason I say equal is because, like, DeSantis has not had the opportunity to do it at the American level, in a whole, versus, like, DeSantis did everything in his ability to make it, he took the biggest steps in Florida that have ever been done. So they're equal-ish, in my opinion, as far as record goes.
Gotcha.
All right. For the abortion stance.
So that's a pretty good place to leave it, unless we have more things to say about these candidates. I don't really have anything else to say regarding why I'm supportive of Trump. I feel like, in the peripheries of all my answers, I've kind of said why. I think that his stance on Ukraine has been a really good one regarding, I'm going to sit down with both of them. Now, will he get it done in 24 hours? No. Will he get it done quickly? Yes, I do think he can. And I really think, really and truly, he's probably the one candidate that will actually attempt to really get America out and try, and more than try, can do it. Because I really genuinely think, and he's actually said this in his rallies, which is why I think it, that he's willing to look over at Putin and say, if you stay in, then we're going to give you a lot. And he's also willing to look at Zelensky and say, if you don't come to the table and talk to Putin about peace, no more aid. Yeah. So that's, to me, is a masterful negotiation tactic. Yeah. You're not only giving people carrots, you're giving them sticks too.
Yeah.
And saying, look, carrot, people will stop dying. stick. If you don't, this is going to be really, really hard for you. I can make your life miserable. And I really do genuinely think that Putin would listen to Trump and think, this guy really will take me to task. And I think Zelensky would look at Trump and say, this guy, number one, got impeached because of something having to do with Ukraine. There's no love lost between the two of our countries. He probably will pull the plug when it comes to aid.
Yeah.
I really need to talk to Putin and say, hey, what can we do to stop the bloodshed? I really think there's a good chance of that because, again, there's no... And also, this is not the guy who's currently whose son went to Ukraine and ran a business illegally. Okay, he ran the business. There's all kinds of legal stuff that went on after. I'm not saying he was there illegally. I'm just saying he was there and there's all kinds of legal problems that happened with Hunter and possibly Joe.
And to add to your point as far as why Zelensky would come to the table, Zelensky's also said that Trump needs to share his negotiation tactics now. Now, that'd be a terrible idea because that's one of the things he's running on. But that at least shows that Zelensky's trying to figure something out as far as how to get out of this war, too. Now, again, I think there's another side of that as far as collusion, whatever you want to call it. I think that they're trying to get that information from Trump in general because they don't want him to be holding that as a voting technique anyway. Does that make sense? Sort
of, yeah. I think there's an aspect of that. I will say I don't necessarily think, from what I know of Zelensky, that he will do a peace deal unless he's basically forced to.
Yeah.
Because his own people, when you look at the polling data, I've seen some polls when it comes to, all right, do you agree with the following statement? In order for peace to happen, then Ukraine is going to need to concede some territory.
Yeah.
It's something like 80-20. Like 80% of Ukrainians are like, no, we're not okay with that. We need to recapture everything from Russia, which is a pipe dream. Okay?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
20% of the Ukrainian people are like, yeah, it's realistically probably true.
Yeah, war needs to stop.
Yeah, and also the Ukrainians have had so many counteroffensive, and where has it gotten them? Hardly anything.
Right,
There's been tiny little groups of territory snatched, but it's not like Russia is like clenching their fists in fear and like, what are we going to do?
Right.
That's not happening. So, finally, I don't think Zelensky would do it unless he's forced to. Again, I think with Biden, he sees a friend, someone that I think there's corrupt business ties. Yeah. How much of the money that Ukraine is getting is coming back to Biden's pocket, we're not sure. How much of it's going to Hunter, how much of it's going to the Democrat Party. There's all kinds of things. I mean, I don't even have anything to back this up, but I do happen to wonder how much of this war is happening because there are secrets on the Bidens and the Democrats that are in Kiev. And the Ukrainians are being told, guard this with your lives, because if the Russians get a hold of it, I don't remember if you remember from 2016, a lot of the stuff that the Russians got a hold of from WikiLeaks, the Russians got a hold of went to WikiLeaks, and it actually came out against Clinton.
Yeah.
So the Russians, to me, it's not that they love Trump. It's not that they hate Hillary. It's about sowing discord in America or... Maybe some of it is about disliking Hillary Clinton because she was very hawkish in her rhetoric on Russia. Mm-hmm. Talking about, we don't care that Putin has a problem with our military exercises in Poland. We're going to do it anyway. And we're going to knock planes down in Syria. And Trump was like, well, what about if we work with Russia to take out ISIS? They saw a difference there. I'm just saying. So...
Yeah, what is the saying? The enemy of my enemy is my friend?
Right. So in some sense, there may have been, okay, Clinton's clearly an enemy. Trump, maybe not. There could have been like a question. There's a question mark. We're not really sure. Now, did Trump put Javelin missile systems in Ukraine in case the Russians invaded? Yeah. Yes. So there were hawkish things that Trump did. There was a mixed relationship
100%.
there. So anyway, that being said, that's the way that I see this whole Ukraine thing going down. And again, do I see DeSantis maybe taking a crack at that with this negotiation? Possibly.
Yeah.
But still, man, I still see him saying, well, Europe is contributing, America needs to contribute.
Yeah.
And he could have, if you want to talk about political answers, it wasn't word for word what Pence said about Ukraine. It wasn't even 90% or 50% what Pence said. But it was like the peripheral vision, something like that.
And I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's still too NATO-esque, still too globalist for my taste. And some people, again, we talked earlier about primary and secondary and tertiary issues. Some of it depends on how important this is to all the listeners, all the viewers, all the constituency.
Right.
We need to go. I want to tell all of you temporarily goodbye, and I'm looking forward to coming back and talking to you about whatever is going on. Probably by the time I come back, there might be another debate. If there's not, we'll gear up for the next one. We're going to have a lot to talk about when I come back. So one thing that I think would be helpful, because I'm going to be unplugging some, although I'll be following, I'm sure, in my peripheral vision, a little bit of politics, is when we come back, you kind of catch me up in some way. Not a huge thing, but some things that I've missed. And then you and I can cover it. And I'm looking forward to that. That'll be a really good thing because this has been a really good podcast episode. So, Celtics fan 33 on Instagram, zoo_nation_ on Instagram. Please follow us. And please listen to Nathan as he talks in the future, at least a couple of episodes in the month of October and again early November as well. So there's a window. And look on Instagram for updates on, hey guys, here's an episode that's out for y'all. So unless you had something to add toward the end, we'll close it there. Guys, thank you again for watching this episode of Zoo Nation. My name is Josh.
I'm Nathan.
And everybody, take care.